Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we're talking about 2023 in an overview. That's right. I have been working really hard, and this kind of is something that comes up a lot at the end of a year is I start looking at retrogrades for the following year and the following year after that, and kind of like, are the dates I found, are they correct, are they accurate? All of those kind of really interesting things, and I like to have them on my calendar so I know ahead of time what planets are going into retrograde, how is it going to affect us, and when does it go in retrograde again, because some planets go into retrograde every year, and then other planets go into retrograde every 2 years, or like Mercury several times a year, it seems like. And so let's start talking about kind of Mercury in retrograde. So one of the things I found was really kind of interesting is most people do not like Mercury in retrograde. Hopefully I've kind of turned you into not hating Mercury so much, and kind of hopefully giving you a better insight of how to work with Mercury's energy than anything else. But it is kind of funny that we kind of end 2022 moving into 2023 in Mercury in retrograde. Yeah. And then we do the same thing in 2023 into 2024. So it's kind of like, okay, really? Yeah. So, and kind of really doesn't affect too many people. Like I said, hopefully I've kind of turned into maybe not a Mercury lover, maybe just kind of like we can deal with it a little bit better, because I think what's really important is what it's doing is kind of giving us a better start on the new year instead of waiting until after Christmas, after the holidays, kind of like, okay, now we're in that last week of that year, and kind of what are we looking for in the next year. Because of Mercury, I start looking at that literally a month or 2 months in advance. I'm already looking at it because I don't want to wait until Mercury is in full retrograde to start looking at my calendar and making changes to my calendar and looking at things that I need to be scheduling and all that kind of stuff. Like, I like to be looking at it in advance. So it does give me a little bit of a break, kind of like a rest kind of thing of, I'm looking at it far enough in advance that I can make the changes and adjustments to what I really want to do or how I really want to deal with this coming year a little bit sooner than I normally would be. And hopefully that's done that for you as well. I'm kind of setting my goals. What do I want to accomplish this year? How many, whatever would I like to do? That sort of thing. I will tell you, in 2022, I changed a lot of things. Changed how I did my newsletter. Changed how I worked with my clients. Changed how I even changed the office. You can tell the colors in my office are completely different. So I've changed a lot in 2022, and I'm always hoping that I'm always looking for something new in the next year. And to me, 2023 has some amazing energy, and I'm ready to kind of look forward into that for me. So let's talk about Mercury in retrograde. Mercury goes into full retrograde on December 29th, 2022 through January 18th, 2023. And then it does it again the following year, or at the end of 2023, it goes into full retrograde on December 13th, 2023, through January 1st, 2024. So it doesn't necessarily horribly affect all of us, but it's one of those, like I said, it really gives us an opportunity to really move things forward and really start thinking about what is it that we really want to activate that year. What is it that we really want to move forward in that year? And I always start with that in a positive energy. Like I said, getting things ready to go quicker, faster is not necessarily a bad thing. I've often thought about starting it even sooner, but sometimes my life gets a little crazy. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I love what I do, and I love the time that I spend with my clients and my people. I love it. So kind of setting your 2023 kind of like goals and aspirations and what you want to do should have been dealt with kind of like the end of November. That's when I was really working on mine and kind of like letting y'all know, like, heads up, this is what's coming up. So kind of working on that in advance. And I will do that again in 2023, as I want to work on it far enough in advance that it's not affecting me during Mercury in retrograde, or trying to set dates or times or schedules or anything else. I think that's kind of what I've learned how to work through Mercury in retrograde a little bit easier. Kind of setting my 2023 year, and that's kind of the way I feel like it is, kind of like set my 2023 year moving forward, kind of like, okay, at least I'm getting this going in the right direction. So that's kind of like, interesting. I will tell you kind of the number 2 thing that we really got to keep in mind for 2023 is kind of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And this is the first time in 29 years that Saturn has been in the sign of Pisces. And so it's kind of getting really some kind of like some new energy, some new stuff, because it takes 29 years to make it all the way around Saturn. He's out there pretty far. So he's not one of the slower ones, but he is one of the mid-slow ones. We're going to put it that way. So I think this is kind of a great energy. Saturn is in the sign of kind of this energy of illusion and fantasies for like the next 3 years, beginning March 7th, 2023. And so this is kind of like that energy of, what do we want to do next? Where do we want to go? And this is going to be hitting us. So whatever age you were 29 years ago, that may be something that we're coming up with or dealing with again. And so you have to kind of like do the math on that, kind of like, how do we figure that one out? So go back 29 years ago. What were you dealing with at that time frame? And it's not just like exactly like, here's a carbon copy of 29 years ago. Think about it as how your levels of energy have changed, how your thinking has changed in the last 29 years, and looking at this situation in like, wow, I never knew I would be dealing with this. You know what I'm saying? Again, but feeling like, okay, before I felt like incompetent or unable to deal with this, or completely overwhelmed. And now it's like, wow, this is major. I can deal with this in a completely different way, in a completely different manner, and kind of really allowing that to come in, kind of really allowing that to kind of like, wow, this is really coming in. So it's one of those, this is kind of one of those like, interesting. We can expect kind of like the 90s kind of, that's where we're going back into, is kind of like that 1990s energy of kind of like, where were we during that time frame? What were we going through? How were we dealing with life during that time frame? And it's not necessarily like I said, to relive it. It's kind of do it again differently. You might want to step back in kind of like that Saturn energy of like the structure or the restructuring of things, or how are we going to do this differently? How are we going to deal with this differently than we've done in the past? Because that's kind of the best part of looking back, especially when you get some age on you. It's kind of like looking back like, wow, this was not dealt with the right way, or I could have dealt with this much better, much easier than I did. But going back to that time frame of going like, wow, I can really deal with this a lot differently. I can really work through this a lot differently than I have in the past. And I think it's kind of almost like a strange fantasy. I know, because it's like, if you think back to what you were dealing with at the time, kind of like, wow, I'm overwhelmed with this, I'm overwhelmed with that, and kind of thinking about it like, wow, I'm dealing with this much differently than I have in the past. Like, wow, I'm really dealing with this in a great way. Or even getting a new opportunity, kind of a new opportunity to kind of reset the energy right, kind of reset things. And that's kind of the great part about it, because Saturn is all about our structure and restructuring things, and kind of like the infrastructure of how do we set this up. So if there's something you did wrong back then that you believe, not anybody else, you believe like, I really wish I could do this differently. I really wish I could do this a way differently. This is the time. This is totally the time to be taking care of that. So next, let's kind of talk about Jupiter. Jupiter comes in with some kind of amazing energy and is in the sign of Aries, which is kind of like that warrior sign. So really, there's not going to be a lot of rest in Jupiter's energy for 2023. And I think that's kind of an interesting part, because a lot of people that have been feeling devastated or overwhelmed with other people's energy, or kind of like this isn't working well, and ready to kind of like fight those good fights. Like, we're ready to fight this good fight. We're ready to make some changes. And I will tell you that one of the things that I think is really interesting is there's going to be kind of a great energy of like fighting back, because I think for a while it's like people have been fighting kind of one-handed and kind of pushing people in one direction, and I really feel like it's going to be kind of coming together and finding that middle ground for both, which I think is a great way kind of for everybody, because if one side is only winning and the other side isn't at all, it's one of those like we're only going one direction. But when we kind of meet in the middle, it allows both sides to kind of give and take a little bit, kind of like. So one of the last things to talk about with Jupiter in the sign of Aries is it actually goes into Aries as of December 20th, 2022, and stays in Aries energy until May 16th, 2023. And this really puts freedom and political ideas right out front, so we, like I said, can come meet in the middle, because it's been literally one side or the other for off and on for generations. And so I feel like this one's really going to kind of bringing in these two energies, because we've got Jupiter's energy of luck and expansion and abundance, and then we've got Aries energy of kind of that warrior sign of kind of bringing these together. So it's kind of like meetings of two amazing minds, and this is going to give a lot of people courage and faith and kind of this conviction about being able to talk about our differences and being able to talk through things. And I do feel like this is going to be an amazing way for us to communicate, not only now, but in the future. And it's going to kind of set us up in that amazing energy. Next, let's talk about kind of our 2023 lunar nodes. And this is something I haven't studied all that long, so it's one of those that's kind of really important. I've started to understand it a little bit more, but it's one of those, it's kind of more interesting than you can ever imagine. So the lunar nodes and eclipses really kind of bring like a lot of commitment back, energy back into things. And it kind of, I get that it's kind of like the stars say that this is kind of like the way this energy comes at us is kind of bringing in like the moon's south karmic node of kind of like bringing in karma and kind of bringing this in. And this is kind of like a special place in the sky where we are going to be kind of moving through like two relationships at the same time, and kind of orienting these signs of kind of like, how are these two signs in the sky, this relationship, going to come in? And I will tell you that it's kind of been a really great combination of the two, with Scorpio and kind of bringing that intimate energy in, and then you've also got Libra kind of bringing that combination, or kind of the balancing the scales together, helping us kind of rethink what it means to be together. How does that mean for both of us? What does it mean together? And we're going to have an amazing time. Basically, then on like July 17th, the South Node rounds out in kind of an 18-month tour of Scorpio. So this is going to be kind of like, and Scorpio is that sign of reproduction and kind of the under stuff, kind of like bringing all of that out into the open. And this is kind of thinking about things differently. 2022 also had like, because of one of the nodes coming in, I was like reading an article on this, and I was like, really interesting, of 2022, kind of like that smallpox outbreak, left plenty of people kind of really shook up about things, kind of like, wow, this is really something that we haven't really thought about. But I will guarantee you that the people that had that really had an awakening of like their thoughts, their minds, like their insight of like, how do we change this and how do we do this? One of the things I think is really interesting too is that we can bridge that gap between kind of like individuals' needs and desires, and then kind of the demands and the commands of like relationships. Like, how do we kind of bridge these two? Because I think a lot of times, like when people are single, they want to be in a relationship, and sometimes when people are in a relationship, they want to be single. So it's kind of like, how do we balance these out really, really well? That is going to be kind of an interesting kind of, like I said, thing that we're kind of dealing with. Our lunar nodes head into Aries. The north node is in the sign of Aries, and our south node is in the sign of Libra from July 17th, 2023 until January 11th, 2025. And this is going to be really testing some new energy for us. May 5th, we have a Scorpio lunar eclipse, and then on October 14th, we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So this is going to be really eclipsing that energy and kind of pushing our energy even more forward than it is now, and kind of bringing in a little bit more balance in all of this. Next, let's move into Venus, because Venus is a very loving, interesting energy. And one of the things that really happens interesting in Venus in 2023 is that we have Venus going into retrograde during kind of like wedding season. Like, I know May, June, July is really that super wedding energy that a lot of people are getting married during that time frame. So romantic Venus rolls out kind of like some amazing energy into going into retrograde in the sign of Leo. And I will tell you that for 4 months, from June 5th through October 8th, we are going to be kind of this affectionate woo-woo, like, oh my gosh, amazing energy. And it will be bringing a lot of fanfare back to kind of like this commitments, these marriages, kind of highlighting them in some ways that we really haven't seen marriage highlighted in a long time. And I know people have had these grand marriages and that sort of thing. Just wait for this season. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're going to see more of this kind of like highlighted, more of this coming about, kind of really amping things up. So I think that's kind of one of the, wow, interesting ones. But there is kind of like a little bit of a clip in there, is from July 22nd through September 3rd. The planet of love slips into retrograde, changing kind of like this evening star lovely energy into a morning star of kind of like visibly kind of bringing in a lot of changes during this time frame. It's changing its position a little bit in the sky, so you're going to see some of that coming out. But for 6 weeks, we are going to be putting relationships issues to bed, kind of like clearing them out, really kind of bringing out like some good things. You're going to see weddings kind of come off without a hitch. You're going to see a lot of people resolving to stay in great relationships. You're going to see like marriage really highlighted during this time frame in a way we haven't seen in a long period of time. I will also say kind of there could be some old unresolved issues, and this could be like ex-wives, ex-husbands, all that kind of stuff, kind of bringing this out and kind of like really ready to talk through things, maybe ready to clear the air and kind of move into a much better energy. I will say you, kind of the best thing to do is kind of like, if you are invited to a marriage anywhere from July 22nd through September 3rd, make sure that everything is dotted, everything is cleared up, because you may have some delays because there may not have been able or didn't want to clear everything up before they walk down the aisle. And so you may go, oh, it's been canceled, and then have it rescheduled a few weeks later. So you're kind of like, interesting. I will tell you, there's a lot of people kind of changing their energy about marriage, of where people were not interested in marriage for a long period of time, and now people kind of like, wow, I really do want to get married. I want that commitment from somebody else. Interesting. Let's see. Jupiter renews our hope around like working hard, working for money, kind of like this economic kind of like windfall coming around. I would say kind of like mid-year, somewhere around in there. You're going to feel a lot of this energy coming in. I will tell you that with kind of like our inflation rising, kind of like the potential of a recession kind of like on the loom, kind of like it could be coming at us. Not to mention, I would say a lot of people are really putting their money into crypt money and crypt fund or whatever, you know what I'm saying, all that kind of stuff. I will tell you that it's one of those, it's going to be a lot of struggles. A lot of companies are still not back 100% from COVID. There are a lot of people that really don't want to work after COVID, or really kind of taking the time to make sure that their decisions are the right ones for them. I will tell you that I've seen a lot of people wanting to go back to school, kind of getting their education in a way that they haven't wanted to in a long period of time, of kind of like, I don't want this low-end job anymore. I want something that's really going to honor me, like where I'm at, what I'm doing in my world. So I really think that's kind of an interesting energy that we really haven't had in quite a while. Before you kind of take kind of this energy, I would say May 16th on, you're going to kind of have this Jupiter like really pushing a lot of energy, and it's kind of going through the sign of Taurus during this time frame. And so it's kind of like Taurus is that sign of practicality and luxury, and you're going to see this kind of the first visit that we've had of these two since like 2012. I will tell you that a new type of energy is coming forward for the second half of 2023, catering to workers' needs for their job and satisfactory, kind of like feeling that like, I want a job that really means something. I just don't want a regular everyday job. Allowing markets to flourish and kind of grow and kind of come back a little bit more. I wouldn't say necessarily like 100% back to being great, but I feel like it's kind of moving in that direction. Jupiter, kind of our happy, very lucky energy, is going to be kind of bringing some big fortunes in, and you're going to see this as it passes through Taurus. And I will tell you that you're going to see some new spins on money, making money. One of the things I also found that it's one of those, like these two signs together are known for making millionaires. I know it's like, wow, kind of like, okay, interesting kind of thing. I will tell you that this is going to be like a lot of changes, a lot of people coming in with a lot of financial changes. And it doesn't mean that someone had to work hard for 20 or 30 years to be a millionaire. You're going to see that kind of coming in quickly. And it could be someone who just like, boom, I have an idea, and it launches and it goes viral and everybody's like, wow, that's the latest, greatest thing I have to have. So you're going to see a lot of changes in people's money and wanting to make money. Maybe people that haven't been really like, I don't really think I'll, no matter if I work hard all my life, I'm never going to get better or get out of the situation I'm in, and they're going to be changing those ideas and thoughts for the best. Next, let's talk about Pluto. Pluto moves into the sign Aquarius, and this is the first time since 1778 through 1798, kind of to have these two together, to have Pluto and Aquarius together at the same time. And this is going to be really putting democracy, and I see democracy as like both sides, kind of like this and this kind of coming together. You're going to see a lot of that coming together. I do feel like this is going to be something that a lot of people have been waiting for a long period of time, to kind of get both these sides out. I will tell you that for a long time, people have kind of felt like democracy is kind of like falling and that sort of thing and kind of dying. But I kind of feel like that Pluto energy is going to be kind of like that destructive and regeneration planet, kind of bringing this destruction, kind of like this is falling apart because we've got to regenerate it. And that's kind of really what happened way back when in the 1700s. It's one of those, our old rule kind of fell apart and it wasn't doing well and it wasn't suiting enough people. There were still some people that were loyal to that, but it's one of those, it wasn't fitting everybody. You're being governed from far, far away. And a lot of people have already been feeling that a lot with Washington and the way this is coming down, of kind of like, I don't feel like I'm really getting my side heard. I really don't feel like this is coming forward for me. Let's see. This kind of really starts about like March 23rd through June 11th. This is the first time this energy is going to be kind of like in this sense of like, let's make some changes, let's move forward. Pluto directs our collective shadow work. So kind of like things that have been in the shadows kind of coming forward, because things that have been in the shadows for long periods of time tend to stay in the shadows, but this energy is going to be moving things forward. I guarantee you settling in Aquarius's energy is going to be a kind of like a much needed, much desired kind of balance back into our world. I will tell you that it's one of those, I kind of feel like this is going to be kind of like that Aquarius energy is always talking about like we the people making changes all together. I will kind of hit you a little bit on the side note is I have seen kind of prophesying for this in dreams for quite a while. And it's kind of like, wow, I'm kind of glad to see it start moving forward and kind of start making some different changes. I will tell you that there is going to be some changes. There are going to be some accountability for things that we haven't had really accountability for a long period of time. And one of the things I'm getting as well is this is something that a lot of people have been talking about for a long period of time, but things have not been changing or making kind of like coming around. So it's kind of like now it's finally in motion. It's finally moving. It's finally getting that energy going in the right direction. And I do feel like this is more a balance of energy. Not necessarily my side is better and your side is worse or any of that. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is kind of a coming together that we really haven't had in the United States in a long time, because I think for a long time we've seen each other as you're not the same as me, and so your needs, wants, and desires are not always the same as mine, or what you want is differently. And I do feel like there's going to be a coming together of that, a kind of a coming of like bringing this back into balance. And I do feel like there's going to be a lot of accountability coming in. I've even told this to my political clients of like, there's going to be a lot of political stuff coming in and a lot of accounting. So if you've got some secrets in your closet, you better start worrying about that now, and really getting it out on your own, because it's going to be better than someone else bringing it forward for you instead. So let's do some angel cards and hopefully get you a little bit deeper insight into kind of like 2023's energy. I will say that, like I said, this is going to be kind of an interesting one. I'm going to be kind of taking these in turn as well. So Mercury, I get, is kind of truth and integrity. And this is always the way with Mercury in retrograde. Speaking your truth, saying it with integrity is going to be one of those amazing things that I think not only we need to be aware of as we work through Mercury's energy, but other people as well. Kind of like, where is my truth in all of this? Kind of where does this kind of seem like it's coming into? This one is next is for Saturn. And I had 3 popping up, and this is the one that said serenity. And this is talking about kind of like bringing in peace and harmony and kind of being real. I think a lot of times people have felt really like unreal lately, or kind of like what they really want for what's coming forward has not been the best. But like I said, this is going to be kind of like a peek back into the 1990s and kind of like what were you going through there during that time frame, and how are things feeling or looking different than they have in the past. This is going to be like a wow. Next, let's pull one for Jupiter. This one is our guardian angels, kind of really bringing in that trust that things are changing around us. Jupiter's energy really is going to be affecting a lot of kind of like that freedom, bringing in balance back into things. And like I said, bringing a balance, and that guardian angel energy is always, they're never 100% on your side. They're always kind of like, okay, you could do better. You could do this differently. So I always think of that as kind of like this really healthy energy of let's bring these changes in together and work through this in some amazing ways. Next, let's talk about like Venus. This is Archangel Michael, and this is kind of really talking about getting both sides heard, because a lot of times in marriages, people feel like, only the dominant person is getting their side heard, or only the dominant person is getting it. Now, Archangel Michael is there and balancing those energies out, and that's why you're going to see kind of a strange wedding season ahead of just kind of bringing this energy up around rescheduling things and making sure that when people say yes, it's a true yes, and it's a yes deep from their heart, kind of like, yes, here we go. Let's go into a little bit more about Jupiter. This is Jupiter kind of in our money and our economics. You're going to see a lot of changes in economics. You're going to see a lot of people making their changes, and you could actually see a couple of millionaires come out of nowhere and make some amazing changes. This is harmony. You have to be in harmony with your money. So many people fight the money, they argue with the money, they deal with things incorrectly. No. Money has to have peace and calmness, and to be wanting to bring in that energy for us. So the more we kind of bring this peace and harmony, that we are in balance with money, money is not ruling us, or our material items are not ruling us, we're going to see a great season in Jupiter. Our last one is kind of moving into our Pluto, moving into the sign of Aquarius, and this is spiritual growth, and this is going to be giving us a great time to make some spiritual growth, of making some balances, making some concessions. Like I said, it's going to be bringing both sides in and making this great union together, not one side leading the other or anything else. This is going to be a great union of balancing this energy, and more of an accountability is what I have personally seen for a long time, is this personal accountability coming in a way that we have not seen in a long period of time. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.